Roll call, please.
President Byrne, Trustees Cook,
Here?
Oppenheim,
Here.
Takaoka, Brown,
Here.
Schultz,
Here.
Markwart.
We have a quorum.
Mr. Clerk, at this time, I'd like to nominate Trustee Cook to become President Pro Tem for the remainder of this meeting.
There's a motion and second. If there's no further discussion, may we have a roll call, please?
President Byrne, Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka, Brown,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart, Cook.
Aye.
Congratulations.
We have a quorum and the meeting started. Could everyone please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, are there any citizens wishing to address the board on something other than what's on our agenda for this evening? Okay. There appears to be no presence report. Village manager.
Just a couple quick announcements, Mr. President Pro Tem. Reminder that the next scheduled board meeting for the Vernon Hills Village Board will be August 13th. Normally, was scheduled for August 6th. That is our National Night Out night. So to allow all the board members to attend, the regularly scheduled meeting was moved to August 13th, and there will be only one meeting in August. Next, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank everyone that was involved with the 4th of July parade and fireworks this year. This was a very, very positive event. I've heard nothing but positive things. No constructive criticism this year, and that's a credit to all the volunteers and staff that put this together. Truly a collaborative effort between many different groups. This year there were a total of 86 different units in the parade. And I'd like to sincerely thank the parade committee members and volunteers, Kathy Byrne, John Hintz, Bob Pusich, Steve Maslov, Tim Grebe, Dave Taylor, Jeff Johnson and Son, Karen Kozensik, Sandy Epstein, Alyssa Hintz, Brian Zimmer, Krista Zimmer, Andre and Alan Long, Mary Vandermeer, and Ella Winkles, who was the individual who sang our national anthem at the flagpole just prior to the start of the parade. And a special thanks to the Vernon Hills Park District for sponsoring the South Shore Drill Team, the Black Watch Band, and once again sponsoring the evening's entertainment over at the park, the Big Fun Band. Special thanks also goes to the Vernon Hills Public Works, Countryside Fire Protection District, and the Vernon Hills Police Department for their efforts both in the morning and in the evening. Public Works, again, outdid themselves with a great job on putting together the village's float. And thanks also goes to Hawthorne School District 73 for housing the bands. And a very special thanks to Lisa Fischbach, one of our administrative assistants. Her coordination with the parade and the day's events truly speak to her dedication to the community, and we really do appreciate her efforts. Without it, the parade would not have gone as well as it did, and the fireworks. And last but not least, special thanks to the Vernon Hills Village Board for your continued support of this village event. We're very appreciative of the opportunity to hold such a successful community-wide event that draws people not just from Vernon Hills, but from all over the region. So thank you.
If I can tag on, you forgot one name, Mr. Petrillo, who's not here. And he did a marvelous job for his first year, along with Lisa, who, as you so stated, just a tremendous, tremendous asset when it comes to that full day's activities.
What most people don't realize is to prepare for an event like a parade like that, it begins about 6 months ahead of time.
Yep.
And if you pass by her desk, you see the chart that she has standing next to her desk with all the float participants. and all the organizations for which group they go into, and then the contacting of everybody to make sure everybody's going to be there, and to coordinate everything that goes into it is nothing short of phenomenal.
Yep.
And she does an outstanding job every year.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Thanks. And I do apologize to John Petrillo. Out of sight, out of mind.
No, John worried his way through the entire day, and he did a fine job worrying, and he did a fine job getting things taken care of and getting things done, and worked really well.
Good, good. And it did go off very, very well. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, as everyone knows, this Thursday night is the beginning of summer celebration. The events start on Thursday evening. The carnival, or the park opens at 6 p.m. With the carnival ride. It's also bracelet night. That's the opening night. At 7 p.m., the Pelvis Brothers take the stage. At 9:15 or so is the fireworks display. On Friday, again, the grounds open at 6 p.m. with carnival rides and bracelet night. 7 p.m., Radio Heroes take the stage. At 9 p.m., Melon Cougar takes the stage. And at 11 p.m., after Melon Cougar, DJ will be performing until the event closes at 12 o'clock. Excuse me. At 9 a.m. on Saturday morning is the car and bike show. I think this is the 5th year that we've done the car show. 6th year, thank you. At 1 o'clock, the grounds open for the carnival. 1 to 3 is kids' crafts and entertainment under the big tent. They got kids' crafts, face painting, balloon animals, and special projects sponsored by Home Depot. At 7 p.m., Trippin' Billy's opens. And at 9 p.m., the main act for the night is the Bodines, very successful group with a very, very large following. And again, DJ will be performing from 11 p.m. until 12 midnight. On Sunday, grounds open at 1 p.m., again for the carnival. 1 to 5 in the afternoon is kids' crafts and entertainment under the big tent. Petting zoo, game show, kids' craft, face painting, balloon animals, and more. At 2 o'clock is the 7th annual bags tournament. And at 4 p.m. is karaoke on the big stage. And I encourage everyone to bring lots of water and be well hydrated for this event. We will be meeting with the fire department and the park district tomorrow morning to discuss our plan for how we plan to handle the excessive heat.
Yeah, maybe some sprinkler stations.
Yeah, we're already on that. That's going to happen. So we're just going to see. The fire department, fortunately, always has a first aid tent on station anyway, and we'll have sprinklers or some type of activity for people to get wet and hose people down, keep them moist, cool. Hopefully, it's not as bad as they say.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Nothing from the Assistant Village Manager or Finance Director, so Chief?
Thank you. I'd just like to remind the board and the community that on Tuesday, the first Tuesday in August, on Tuesday, August 6th, we're hosting our annual National Night Out. God bless you. This is part of a nationwide event that helps organize communities and helps send a message to the community and also to folks that might question our ability to work together effectively, police and community together, to keep our streets safe. It's a nice national message to go out. It's a great excuse to have a party. It's a free barbecue cookout for the community. Any members are welcome to come. Again, we've got some great sponsors. There's going to be Chick-fil-A sandwiches served, hot dogs grilled by members of the police department, a lot of events for small children and people of all ages. We've got some a heck of a volleyball tournament going on. If there's any community volleyball teams still out there, I think we have a slot, and they could certainly contact the police department between now and then, see if they can get in that tournament. But look forward to the whole community coming out to Hartman Park on Oakwood Road, Tuesday, August 6th, between 4 and 8 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Nothing from Public Works or Director of Community Development, so next item is the omnibus vote agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to pull H and M for separate votes.
H and M. Okay, so then if I've got this right, the omnibus would be A through G, I through L, and N and O?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion a second. Any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Takaoka, Brown,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Marport,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item H.
The reason I asked for that to be pulled is that the final payment?
Yes.
With that being said, I thought there was some potential for a rebate based on certain activities that we were engaged in that had a cost to us and that may in fact be reimbursable. And as a result, by making this final payment, we lose leverage in that particular arena?
No, that's not. I know what you're referring to. Our leverage comes from collecting that from the increment in the future when there is an increment, and that's where that'll come from. This is an obligation that we have upon completion of the second retail outlot, core and shell. If you recall, there was $18 million that was pledged for the TIF reimbursement.
Okay,
There were-
so I misunderstood then the increment fund would reimburse the village as opposed to the recipient.
Correct.
Okay, and what we're discussing is item H is approval and passage of an ordinance amending the village code to authorize payment of $1 million pursuant to the redevelopment agreement for Melody Farm. So, sorry.
Right, the original agreement was for $20 million. $18 million was placed in the trust fund to be used to be paid for out of the TIF reimbursable expenses. The remaining $2 million were tied to the substantial completion of core and shell of 2 of the 3 main retail outlets.
Right.
One of those being Lazy Dog. The other one started off being City Works, but it actually eventually became Shake Shack. Both of those not only are substantially completed, but are open.
Right.
So that requires us to issue a certificate of substantial completion, authorizing the release of the $1 million for each of the 2 buildings, bringing our total payout to $20 million.
All right. I was misinformed then someplace along the line that certain legal fees should be reimbursed.
According to the agreement, they can't be out of this. Our reimbursement will come out of the increment generated by the TIF.
With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve item H.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. A roll call, please.
President Byrne. Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Marport,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka.
Motion carries. Item M is approval and passage of ordinance 2019-119, an ordinance amending the approval of payment for certain legal services for fiscal year 2019-2020, not to exceed $424,000.
My point here being that during the budget discussions, we established a cap, and I'm wondering why we are exceeding that cap.
We're not actually exceeding the cap. If you recall, there was $200,000 that was placed into the reserve fund. This does not touch that fund. All that is when the budget was passed and the funds were allocated for each individual law firm, for one of the law firms, it was kept low so that we couldn't exceed it, so that we would have to come back to the board in case that was exceeded. Since we have appointed the new law firm, we've had to bump that money up to cover the expenses for the new law firm, plus anything that may arise for special litigation and our regular legal fees we pay for.
It was my understanding that at the time, we had allocated sufficient funds, provided that we didn't engage in any special litigation.
We had allocated the funds, but we hadn't transferred the money into the account.
Explain, I'm sorry, I'm losing.
Were these expenses already?
No, these were not expenses that were incurred. These were expenses that were anticipated. There was a total of, I think, 420. What was in the budget was, I believe, was like $624,000. Based on a conversation that was taking place at the board, $200,000 of that was removed and put into contingency. We are not touching that $200,000 in contingency. All we're doing is reallocating, reshuffling the deck, if you will, of the remaining $420,000 to apportion it out based on the law firm that was hired and the other legal obligations that we already have.
I now understand. Again, with that being said, I'll make the motion to approve item M.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion on item M? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne, Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka, Brown.
Aye.
Motion carries. No unfinished additional business, right? Okay, then new business communications, approval and passage of Resolution 2019-037, a resolution granting approval to operate an outdoor special event for BGV Motorsports in cooperation with the AAA Car Care Plus, located at 1680 North Milwaukee Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem. The AAA Vernon Hills Car Care Plus charity event would take place on Saturday, August 10th. The hours of operation would be 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The proceeds from this event would benefit the Key to 73 Education Foundation. The classic cars, trucks, and motorcycles would be displayed in the AAA parking lot, and also in a portion of the Lowe's parking lot. It would be the northeast portion of their lot. They have written permission from Lowe's to use that part of their lot. There would also be a banner approximately 24 by 36 inches that would be located at the access drive leading into the parking lot. So the special event application and the site plan, along with the event brochure, have been included in your packet. If the board feels the temporary use is appropriate, then a motion approving the attached resolution authorizing the special event is recommended, subject to the conditions that are outlined in your packet.
Okay. Trustee Schultz.
I'm all in favor of this event, but I'd really like it if it was strictly on the Lowe's property. There's not enough parking around the AAA, and as I've stated many times from this seat, I am a big user of Panda Express, and they have limited parking as it is. So, and we had a series of complaints from the good ladies that were shopping and attending classes at Joann's when the Panda Express folks parked basically in front of Joann's. When this event, or a similar event, I should say, was being hosted by Panera Bread.
That's not us.
I know. I'm allowing you to learn from someone else's mistakes. And so the folks there, that should have been closer to Panera in the back end of that parking lot as opposed to at the Joanne sign. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that we try and be very, very respectful of Jersey Mike's, Starbucks, Panda Express, and
That's all taken into consideration. That's one of the reasons why we've contacted and
AAA has already met with Lowe's. Lowe's has said, yes, you can use this. We literally, for what is going to be in front of AAA, is literally going to be in front of AAA. We just did a walkthrough a couple days ago with them to confirm where everything's being set up
Is
and all
it
that.
front on their north face or their south face?
It's going to be in front.
North and east, was
Yeah,
it?
it's gonna be in front where where it meets Milwaukee Road, and on the left where it sees the swamp.
Beautiful.
So that's where
Yeah,
that
as long
part
as you
is.
contain it to there and then overflow it to the
But
Lowe's.
that still
yeah.
doesn't necessarily address the parking issue.
Well,
They'll park at Lowe's or.
Well, the overflow is all gonna be in Lowe's. And we've already got marked out exactly about 75 spots in Lowe's parking.
Right, but I'm saying what's going to stop somebody who's coming to your event
Staff.
from parking right in front of,
My staff, my cones, my barricades.
okay.
I mean,
So why the great need to park on the north and east sides there?
Amount of vehicles.
they want excitement coming into their building. They want excitement coming into AAA, and that is their parking lot that they actually own, I guess.
right.
So that's why it's on that side. Everything that's like Panda Express, and trust me, I agree with you on Panda Express. I don't get there as often as you might be, but I love going to Panda Express myself. Yeah, we want to make sure that Starbucks has a free through for their drive-through, Jersey Mike's. And I think the reality is that both Panda Express and Jersey Mike's will probably get some lunch crowd out of this too.
Right.
That will help them out on a Saturday afternoon when they may or may not have.
Yeah, there's a better opportunity there than
Yeah.
car buffs going into Joann's.
Probably true.
Unless I brought my wife with me
But
and we went.
just to let you know, the stuff that goes on over at Panera, my understanding is they don't come and talk to you guys and get permission to do it, they just do it. We, on the other hand, as you guys have seen me for the last probably, what, 5 years? 4 or 5 years, I come in front and make sure you guys know who I am and that I will keep everything under control and run very well for you guys too.
Absolutely.
I have no problem. Was this number 1, I guess?
Yeah.
So 2019-037 resolution, making a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any other comments or questions from any on the board? Okay, hearing none, a roll call, please.
President Byrne, trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka, Brown,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, anything else under new business and communication? Anybody have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Do we don't have any closed session on this? Okay, so, there'd be a motion to adjourn and then go to committee of the whole, so.
So made.
Second.
Second, okay, motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Should we move right into committee of the whole then? Okay. I'm,
Yes, you are.
we-
Still.
Yeah, you are. the
Yeah.
President Pro Tem.
Okay, I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item of business is approval of the special committee minutes of June 18th, 2019.
That was our meeting at the Carson's building at
Yes.
Hawthorne. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any corrections?
Yes. Item number 3, third paragraph, it's Carl Borchers with a B instead of an H.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's under item number 3,
Three.
presentation by Centennial Real Estate, the third paragraph down, the gentleman's name, it's actually Carl with a K and a B instead of an H for
Oh,
Carl
okay.
Borchers. It's a typo there.
Okay. So the vote will be as corrected. Any other?
First agrees.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Okay, then a roll call,
Second, please.
please.
President Byrne, trustees Cook,
Aye?
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka? Brown?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
Markwart?
Aye.
Motion carries. Second item, approval of the Committee of the Whole minutes of the June 20th, 2019 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne? Trustees Oppenheim?
Aye.
Takaoka? Brown?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
Markwart?
Aye.
Cook?
Aye. Motion carries. Third item, variation consideration of a report and recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a sign variation at 300 Center Drive.
Thank you. David, you can. Mike's loading up the sign right now. The sign in front of you shows you the variation that's being considered tonight. It would be in front of 300 Center Drive, located as shown right there on the aerial. It's a multi-tenant sign. It would have a brick base, the brick matching as closely as possible to the building. On top of that would be the aluminum box with decorative columns on each side, and then it would display 8 tenant panels. The sign code only permits one of the tenants within the building to be displayed on the sign, so a variation is required to allow the display of 8 tenants. The Zoning Board of Appeals reviewed this matter at its public hearing on June 25th of this year, and at that meeting, the petitioner testified that the property cannot yield a reasonable use in return if the variation is not granted, because feedback from customers indicate they are having trouble finding their destination, especially those businesses that are located on the north side of the building. Also, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, because the multi-tenant office building has entrances on the side and rear that has no visibility from the public right-of-way. And finally, the petitioner stated that the variation, if granted, would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, because the new sign would otherwise comply with all other requirements of the sign code. It would be within the 8-foot height limitation of the sign code. It would comply with the 50 square foot size limitation of the sign code, and it would maintain the minimum 10-foot setback from the front property line. So on a unanimous vote of 5 in favor, 0 against, the ZBA recommends approval of the variation to allow the display of 8 tenant panels. For tonight, if the committee feels that the variation is appropriate, staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving the variation, subject to the sign being installed in compliance with the elevations, site plan, and landscape plan attached to your packet, and also being presented tonight. And the petitioner is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Will the bowling alley be included in this, or just the tenants of the building?
Just the tenants of this building.
Okay.
You know, I can add to that. You'll notice the sign, they originally wanted to have it closer to the access drive, which would have, it had the potential of, at least in the bowling alley's opinion, I'm sorry, in the doctor.
Paul Berkey,
Yeah, of obstructing the view. So being a good neighbor, they moved the sign to the east so that the other sign is clearly viewed and not obstructed.
With the zoning board in favor of it, or the zoning appeals board, I see no problem with going ahead with this.
How many tenants are in that building?
Currently, we have 4 tenants.
Okay.
There are spaces for, there's right now 6 or 7
He is.
units in there, but it can be further subdivided. So there are 8 spaces for signs
So there's
on
enough,
the proposed.
enough spaces on the sign for
Yes,
all of the
for what we
tenants?
intend, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Was that in the form of a motion? or-
Yes, it was, sir.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion, a second. If there's no other discussion, a roll call, please.
President Byrne? Trustees Takaoka? Brown?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
Markwart?
Aye.
Cook?
Aye.
Oppenheim?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Fourth item, a request from Brookdale Senior Living for approval of facade renovations, site plan and landscaping revisions at 145 North Milwaukee Avenue.
Excuse me, briefly, just to remind the board of what happened. This was first considered at your committee of the whole meeting on June 20th. The request was for approval of facade renovations, site plan revisions, and landscape revisions. At that meeting, the board seemed to be fine with the site plan and landscape revisions, but there were concerns raised regarding the proposed ephes cladding on the outside of the building. So the board directed the petitioner to come up with a cost comparison, brick veneer versus ephes, and then come back to the board for further consideration of that. We've also included a picture of what was originally proposed showing the ephes cladding back on June 20th, and also what it would look like with the brick cladding. The cost breakdown, the results of that was approximately $160,000 add-on for the brick veneer. And so for tonight, we're still considering all three, the site plan, the landscape revisions, and then architectural building elevations. But the real focus for tonight was to come to a final determination on the elevations. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board and the applicant.
Well, this is a new applicant.
I'm Mark Watson. Mike Stiles, tomorrow's his 40th birthday, so I couldn't make him come up here. And Brookdale fired Lena because it wasn't approved. I'm just kidding. There's a few things that I wanted to discuss with you regarding that. The cost was one of the factors, but the bigger concern architecturally is that we will never match 35-year-old brick. We might get close. If you look at the original concept, the lower level was an expanded dining room for the memory cares, and the second floor was a screen porch for the what we call memory care crossings. These are residents that are beginning to show signs of memory loss, but not quite there. They're kind of between assisted living and memory care. It's basically assisted living with security. From an overall cost of the big project, $160,000, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start looking at it at just those individual amenities, which is the way the program is set up for the residents, is do we add them a screen porch? It kind of does matter. That coupled with the fact that we couldn't match the bridge, our intent was that the ephes siding would match the cast stone that's around the window trim existing, and we would continue the other cast stone boundary across it. The memory care courtyard on the first floor has an 8-foot fence around it that would obscure most of the first floor addition, and the second floor addition is primarily screened. So you really have very small quantity of it. Of course, we will do whatever you need to do within our budget constraints. If you look at this in the overall aspect of the building, though, this is about a 1% addition. The addition is smaller than the entry canopy, just to give you a sense of scale. And it is on the back side behind a fence. I understand there were some concerns about ephes, and I can get into that level of technical if you'd like. Whatever you want to hear, I'm glad to.
Comments from the board?
Well, first of all, just if the board decided ephes cladding is appropriate, then just to reiterate, staff would make sure a drainable system is installed.
Absolutely.
Trustee Markwart.
I know we've gone through it. One of the factors I look at too is actually some sort of siding or plating that could be also done. That was the whole thing, is that with the previous with houses that went into Greg's Landing, I know with the mayor that was a big point, and there were lawsuits. I'm not particularly a fan of it myself. That's why I probably lead to the brick. I know it's the expense, but even of a point of a siding, there's so many different materials that are out there now too that could be other than the brick itself.
Well, and likewise, I appreciate that. We brought an alternate sample, which is cementuous board. It's basically lightweight concrete. And you can make it look like the stone and do it in any color you like as well. I understand the concerns with ephes. 25 years ago, when that product first came from Europe, one, it was used a lot on wood framing, and they used to bury it in the ground, and water would literally wick up into the building. A lot of that has changed. With the new energy code that we're having to comply to, the insulation behind the brick is basically the same insulation that's the ephes, the same that will be behind this. The difference is the drainable ephes system actually seals that insulation. If it were brick, you've got an open cavity that's not in the sunshine. So there's pluses and minuses to both systems, obviously.
Expansion, contraction is a factor out of
Exactly,
it.
exactly.
And that's why you take a look at a warmer climate, it's not bad, but here in the Midwest where freezing occurs, then you do have some problems.
You guys have all 4 seasons in a weekend, but.
You're absolutely right.
But, and we're open to any suggestions. The cost was a concern to us as we look at just that one piece, because that's kind of the way the program works with the senior living world. Do we add a screen porch? Do we not? If you look at the fact that it doubled the cost to add a screen porch, that becomes a financial situation. If we could go with something in lieu of EFS like a cementuous panel, we'd be glad to. Our intent is to match the stone that's in the building because we know we can't match the brick. So.
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I'd like to hear Mike's thoughts on the stone material
Yeah,
versus the ephes.
I'm sorry, the stone, the
The
panel?
cementuous panel.
The cementuous panel is it's similar to a hardy board, which is a common, it's been successfully installed on residential buildings, commercial buildings. It's far more reliable than I think both brick veneer and EFS products because it's a siding material. It's weather resistant. It repels moisture from going into it. So from a weather,
Something that's within your budget?
It's somewhere between the two.
It's a little bit more.
The concern with the brick is that we have to add a lot of steel and concrete, the footings to carry it, the brick ledge for the brick, and then all the steel framing above those large openings, the steel cost, and then the labor to lay brick as opposed to the other. It's considerable. I just would hate to see them say, okay, we're not going to do the screen porch for the residents.
Right, no,
That's kind of my.
With that being said, I don't have a problem approving the design with a cementuous board.
that's fine. I mean, staff is certainly comfortable with that from a performance perspective.
So what exactly are you looking for in the way of a motion tonight?
So the motion would direct staff to prepare an ordinance approving the facade renovations, site plan revisions, and landscape revisions with the conditions that are outlined in your packet, and will include a condition that the cementatious product be used as the exterior cladding, that which was presented to the board tonight.
Okay, is
So
there-
made.
Second,
Motion a second. Other comments, question?
Can I ask, have we approved any EFS in a while? Or is, or,
Lazy dog? It
Yeah,
does get
so,
from time to time.
I just don't understand why we're, what's the difference? I mean, why are we approving EFS in one facility and not in another? What's the difference?
I personally don't have a problem with the EFS because, as he suggested, EFS has changed significantly from
Absolutely.
when we originally had problems with it many years ago. So
And obviously, our preference would be to keep it as EVIS, because we've already had this bid among contractors. We've got subs ready to go. We're close to getting a permit, hint, hint.
And then,
so
now you have to rebid it all out
we
and
have to
everything.
rebid it, redesign it.
Yeah.
We will do whatever you like us to do, but obviously, we would prefer our original design.
I prefer, actually, you're gonna find this material is better than the EFS. Personally, it's the.
I understand you like that better. It's just why are we holding them to a higher standard than we did
I
Lazy
would
Dog?
say that EFIS is probably more of the industry standard in today's economy than the cementuous panels. Cementuous panels used a lot more in residential versus institutional.
I've had a building with it. It's just the preferred. I know with the mayor at that time frame, he didn't like it because what's happened. I've had it on buildings that I've actually owned,
Wait, are you saying EFS or cementuous panels?
cemetery panels. I prefer, I don't like these.
You don't like the EFS?
I don't, let me pull the board. Trustee Oppenheim? EFS or,
It's not that I really care that much about one versus the other. I just care about the precedent and that why are we holding them to a higher standard than we are another building that we just approved within the last 2 years.
so you would be okay
So
with?
I'm okay with EFS and unless we're holding firm and saying no more EFS for new.
And I would like to say
buildings.
that the addition is about half the size of this room.
Yeah,
And more than
it's a-
50% of the wall is windows and screen.
It's a tiny space.
I'm not a fan of the EFS. I suppose that kind of slipped through the cracks with so far as Lazy Dog and my acknowledging that was an EFS product that was used there. I have a concern because of the age of the residents, that their susceptibility to mold and other issues of that nature. And, you know, there's a certain amount of reticence I have with regard to that facility, with regard to past incidents that have been there. And so I'd like to do something in my mind that has the least probability of being problematic. And if it keeps your costs at a more reasonable level, I think that's a fair compromise.
And we will accept that, but just so you'll know in the future, studies have shown that brick is more susceptible to mold than other claddings because
Right,
it is a
without the
porous
proper
material.
weep
And also
holes and,
crack.
yes,
Yeah.
Creek cracks.
yeah.
So,
Stone.
okay. I'm okay with the EVIS. And you're shown, so.
Stone.
The second one? Okay, all right, so that,
Cementitious panel.
so then the motion would be
Just
everything he
so-
said with the addition of the,
Well, he
cementitious.
indicated
Yeah,
that there would be the
right.
cementitious board.
okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
It's a great product.
Any other discussion on that?
I believe we need a second, don't we? Or do we have?
You already,
I thought there was, wasn't,
I
was there a
don't think
second?
so. I don't hear a second.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
President Byrne, trustees Brown,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye,
Oppenheim,
aye.
Takaoka.
motion carries. Okay,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you. Okay,
Thank you very much.
all right, item 5, the senior bus discussion.
May I request?
Yes.
Just for the purposes of moving forward, if I could get direction from the board on the use of EFS as staff, as we're sitting down and talking to the applicants, so I can get maybe a better expectation of what the board is. There's a Panda Express that's about to get built in Hawthorne Village Commons. That was approved with a certain amount of EFS involved with it as well. And then we have Brookdale. If it's the board's wish that we tell the applicants no EFS, then I'm happy to do so. I just want to make sure what I'm expressing is the wishes of the board.
I have no problem with that because we've gone back to the residential and we've basically changed the residential to say that it all needs to be a stone or whatever. So, you know, we've established
Have-
that precedent. And it's basically.
But again, part of the opposition to EFS was because there were problems with it when it first, was being used, and it sounds like those problems have been addressed, correct?
Yeah, they have from a technical perspective. From staff's perspective, we always try to minimize the use of EFS just from an
Yeah.
aesthetic perspective.
Right.
If it's combined with brick and stone and other materials, then we think it's appropriate to put that in front of the board for consideration. But we never tell them eliminate all the EFS, and I just want to make sure that's okay with the board moving forward, that we continue to tell the applicants that if there's a certain amount of EFS, it's okay to be considered, versus we should be telling them no EFS whatsoever.
I think also too, we looked at more a residential, not a business. And technically, Brookdale is a residential. So, again, only in my eyes of doing rehabs and stuff, I don't touch them, so it's because there's been a lot of complications.
I concur exactly with what trustee Markwart just said.
Not in
It's a
residential.
residential, therefore it's definitely fixed in stone. If it's commercial, poquito,
Little bit, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that direction. I appreciate
Has
it.
the board looked at
And
amending
Gideon.
the code to create a standard that would,
Well, we
Actually,
have done that
we
for
should do that.
residential,
Yeah.
but we have not done it with regard to commercial.
Well, I can, we've done it with commercial as well for new buildings.
Yeah.
So with Panda Express, it included a variation to waive that because some of the building's facade has EFS on it, but it's for new buildings. Jameson's Char House was an existing building that had some existing EFS on there. You allowed them to just repaint that. In addition to that, add stone and brick to make the building look better. So That's the ordinance we have standing right now. I just wanted to get clarification from the board so that when we're, meeting with the applicants and petitioners and they're showing a certain amount of EFS, we know a variation is required, but what's an appropriate variation to request the board and what isn't? And what I'm hearing tonight is if it has to do with residential, don't even consider a variation is the message they should receive. And if it's a commercial building, you're willing to consider some EFS as part of, a smaller amount of EFS as part of the facade, but there needs to be plenty of brick and stone and alternate material. Is that what okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should probably try to put those ratios in the code, even if there's going to be a small, so you can manage the expectations of developers, so
Yeah.
they know what you expect.
I think that's a reasonable
And I
thing
think
to
you're right.
try and do going forward, yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think that you're right.
May I ask, at what point was the residential code changed? Do you know approximately?
I'm going to approximate, I'm going to say it was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, somewhere in there. It was actually all the code. So any new building that came in after that time that had EFS as part of the proposed building, what was required as part of the motion that the board had to make was a variation to allow a certain amount of EFS. It sets the standard at a
and
very
why-
high level. It sets the standard at a very high level.
But did we specifically have problems with mold in the community? Is that why?
Well, there's two
Or is
parts to it. In the 80s, we did have those problems, like a lot of
Right.
communities in the area. The amendment had that in mind, I think, to a certain lesser extent, but greater than that was aesthetics. So we set a very high standard of brick and stone, and if someone came forward with something that included other materials that are brick and stone, the board can then grant that variation. They're not obligated to, but can grant the variation from the requirement. And that's the way we've worked for the last 3 years or so.
We kind of did that in conjunction with the initial discussions revolving around Loyola and Cuneo, I think. That's when that kind of came into play.
It came in right before Melody Farm, yeah, and certainly there was an eye on that.
Yeah, and I think that was part of it, was that we wanted to establish the best.
Standards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it promotes, so as staff, it really works well for staff when we're trying to get something together that's a high quality for the board to consider. It helps us say, look, it's got to be brick or stone. And that's our starting point, And then we end up with a product that may have some EFS or something, but it helps us get to a better place before we even get it in front of the village board.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else on this? All right. Then next item is the senior bus discussion.
I can start if you want. Thank you very much. This is a real difficult discussion that we're about to have because it involves seniors, it involves senior bus service. Maybe a little bit of background, you may recall July 2016, 3 years ago, we had discussions in terms of our senior bus because we were about to purchase a new one. And at that time, we had discussions of the program and just a capacity issue. Our service has drastically changed since it was originally contemplated. The original use for the senior bus was to pick people up and deliver them to the senior center. They may want to go on a field trip, and so it was available for those type of uses. It has drastically changed from years past. Now we're trying to do a lot more for the seniors because we care. But I think we're failing in terms of service delivery. We don't have the capacity to provide for all the seniors. We've opened it up to much more services than originally contemplated. We take people to CLC, Lakeview Fitness Center, shopping, Mariano's, Target, over to the mall, to the library. There's a lot more places we go. And one of the other things is the Victory Center. The first map that we have here is really showing the senior bus drop-off density, and the largest spot on the map is the Victory Center. Many of the other senior facilities, all the other senior facilities are relatively self-sufficient. They have their own bus. They use their bus to provide services to them. The Victory Center, and we've approached them, they have a bus, but it's used for specialty items, and it's not accessible for for some of the services that the seniors of the Victory Center want. So here we are today, and we're trying to figure out how do we provide good service, maybe in a different way. You may recall 2.5 years ago, John Kalmar and Joe Carey, there's a couple things that they were doing. Joe was on the committee for Lake County Coordinated Transportation Services Committee. He joined with Vernon Township, Libertyville Township, Mundelein, Libertyville, to try to find out in terms of dial-a-ride and other ways to deliver service. So how do we move forward? Right now, one bus is not going to do it. The direction in 2016 was, we have one bus, let's do as best as we can to provide the service. We're averaging over 175 riders per month. It's not a money issue for me, but I wanted to share some of the numbers. Just for the bus, the fuel, the labors for the drivers, so it doesn't include the administrative assistants who do the scheduling, manager's office, myself, our mechanics. It's about $43,500. We have about 26 to 28 riders that we really serve. There might be better ways to provide this service. We could give them each $1,600, $1,700 each. They could get their own taxi, and they'd be better off. They could get better service. I'm not proposing that, but that just is helpful in terms of the math. So what we're faced with right now is we've met with LDOT, we've met with Vernon Township, we've met with Libertyville Township. We'd like to still have conversations with them on potentially how they might be able to join. We might be able to join this group, and they can travel from township to township to township, and we think that provides better service. But what we're faced with right now is Bob, one of our bus drivers, just announced he's retiring. He's moving to Arizona. His last day is August 15th. And we have to make decisions. Do we replace this position? Where are we headed in the future? After discussions with the manager's office and myself, we're not certain that we want to replace this position. We think that we should really take the opportunity to see what services are really important and make a change. So what we're proposing certainly initially is to provide service Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because Jeff is still here and he can provide that service. But we want to go back to really the core mission is trying to have them go to medical appointments. In terms of someone going to educational classes at CLC, we all think that has value. Some people schedule it for hair appointments and the like. Those are all nice, but we want to do our core mission well. I think some of the ridership is getting very frustrated with us because when they call, there's not a slot available for them. So short term, at least, we'd like to recommend that we go to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday service, and we restrict it to medical, and we see how this works. Parallel to that, we will continue to have discussions with the other township and other services and see if we can come up with a better way to deliver the service. So that in a nutshell is what staff's recommendation is.
Let me back up just a little bit too to try to help Dave out here a little bit. Is when the original policy was drafted in 1989, the intent was to provide seniors aged 65 and over with the ability to be picked up and transported to the senior center, which was the Lashin Center, and eventually was moved over here. That is not being used for that purpose anymore. Most of our seniors have their own rides here, drive themselves, and they pick each other up. It's not used for that. Over the course of the last 20 years, the policy has changed to allow anyone age 55 and over to use the senior bus. And what's happened is it has turned into a taxi service, which is not a bad thing if we have the ability to provide that service. But medical appointments still take precedence, but people are using it as a taxi service. Also, since the policy was enacted, we've added a lot more senior housing. There's a lot more seniors living in Vernon Hills. And one of the major users of it is the Victory Center. They do have their own senior bus, but they don't transport their seniors using the bus because they don't have the funds to pay for a driver. The other facilities do provide that service. We had a meeting with Libertyville Township and Vernon Township. What we found out, there's actually 4 entities that are providing transportation for seniors in our community. Vernon Township will pick people up south of Route 60 and transport them anywhere within the village as long as they stay south of Route 60. They won't cross into Libertyville Township. Libertyville Township will pick people up anywhere on the north side, but they won't cross over to the south side. One of the options that we were looking at is discussing with the 2 townships is maybe we could come to an agreement where we help subsidize their program a bit, and they can still pick people up. Vernon can still pick people up south of Route 60, and they'll deliver them anywhere within the village. And the same thing with Libertyville Township. They would pick them up on the north side of Route 60 and take them to, say, a doctor's appointment at North Shore. We could still provide transportation for medical appointments as needed. But the three biggest users of the system is to pick people up from the Victory Center and take them across the street to Walgreens to pick up their prescription, literally, 100 yards away. The second highest use is to pick people up from Brookdale and take them to their doctor's appointment at North Shore, which is in the same parking lot. That's kind of some of the stuff we're facing here. We're not meeting the true needs. There's only about 22 people that use, I think there's 200 seniors registered for the program, but only about 22 of them use it on a regular basis. And we'd like to have, we're not saying to cut it off, but we'd like to have your permission to engage, to look at some of the other resources. Either A, like I mentioned, cost sharing with the townships, since they're already providing the transportation, and Vernon has several buses, and I'm not sure about Libertyville Township. The PACE Dial-A-Ride program is also in operation in Libertyville and Mundelein, but that's underwritten by a grant, and apparently we had an opportunity to get into that a number of years ago, and we, for whatever reason, didn't. So their riders pay $4 a ride to go anywhere they want to go within Libertyville, Libertyville Township, and I think Mundelein as well. So you've got PACE Dial-A-Ride, you've got the Vernon Township, you've got Libertyville Township, and you have Vernon Hills, all supplying services, and we're not meeting the needs of the seniors. They're still getting phone calls up front because when they try to get a slot, it's being used to transport someone. If they pick up someone in Grosse Pointe and take them to Lifetime Fitness, it's about a 45-minute round trip. And then in an hour later, they have to go get them and repeat that. That ties up that bus for about an hour and a half during an 8-hour day when the bus is normally in operation. If somebody calls up in the meantime and we have to tell them, no, we can't transport them, they get angry. And more than a couple dozen times, one of our Public Works employees, Al Funk, jumps into a van, one of the village vans, and will go pick people up and take them to their appointment. So now we're using other staff members as well, including our scheduling staff up front. So what we'd like to do is we want to raise this to your attention and look, we're not looking for any motions or votes today. Just give us the authority to look at some of these other options. Like I mentioned, cost sharing with the townships, seeing if we can get into the Dial-A-Ride program with PACE, or other townships have also entered into a voucher program where they will issue, say, 4 vouchers per person per month. And all you do is you call up a prearranged either taxi cab, Uber, whatever, present your voucher, and the driver just has to submit the voucher for payment at the end of the month, and we'll reimburse them. Any of those options would be more cost effective than what we're doing today. And if you're using, say, voucher program, you essentially have an unlimited size fleet of that can serve the seniors better, get them to where they want to go whenever they want to go.
What's the average ride cost, though, within a voucher program, you'd have to set some limits, wouldn't you?
We would, and it would have to be a negotiated rate, and that's, I know Palatine Township has a negotiated rate.
With Uber?
They do it with American Taxi,
Okay.
because it's a larger fleet. You could do it with Uber, because
Right.
Uber rides anywhere in the village are probably only about $6 anyway. So whether, now Palatine Township, I think it's underwritten 100%. The Pace Dial-A-Ride program, each rider has to, I think it's up to $4 now. They pay $4 a ride with their voucher, because I think, Dave, I don't remember, it was like $17 or $18 is what the actual cost was per ride.
26, yeah.
Yeah, okay, $26 a ride is what it actually costs. And the village and Pace underwrite that, and then the riders pay $4 per ride.
Yeah, I've got no problem charging, some nominal fee. $4 seems to be a number I've heard 3 or 4 times here, but charge that fee if it's not a medical appointment, because that was our initial intent.
Right.
Was to ensure that people's healthcare needs were being met.
Absolutely.
At least from a physical transportation standpoint. Yeah, I got no problem if you want to go to Walmart, $4. You want to go to Lifetime Fitness, $4. Whatever.
Yeah, and I'd like to increase the age back up from 55 to 65, because
Yeah.
I think
unless
many of
there-
us at this table are over that age, and
Yeah, the only caveat I would have with that is if they've qualified for Social Security disability.
Right.
If they've qualified for disability, then I think,
And again, I want to make it absolutely 100% clear. We're not talking about eliminating transportation for seniors. I don't want to get to that point. Now, John and I have been down to the senior center and talked to the seniors at least 3 different times. They all understand the problem. They are the ones who will point out who they feel are the ones abusing the system. They all know, and they're ready for a change. They don't want to see it eliminated in case they need it, which I certainly understand, and we're not talking about doing that.
yeah, this is a safety net program.
Well, and I like your idea of exploring negotiating with the townships with the existing service.
How about,
They're already providing the service.
how about asking Walgreens and North Shore to kick in a little too? Have you thought about
Well,
asking
Walgreens-
them to advertise?
If I'm not 100, I may be wrong, but I think they deliver. I think Walgreens and CVS now will deliver your prescriptions. But I would need to check that before I make that statement.
No, but how about for North Shore maybe an advertising
Maybe.
possibility for them, at least, for people going to their facility, if they can kick in some for that, and then any other of the facilities in the area, so.
I think
advocate if
there's
we
a
can-
whole range of options out there. We got together, we pulled a meeting together pretty quickly with Libertyville Township, Vernon Township, and the Pace people. Had a really nice meeting here for about 2 hours a couple of weeks ago. And everyone wants to work together on this because they realize this is a population that really needs to be served, especially those that don't have cars or driver's licenses and can't get around. So we'd really like to do it in a more efficient way where we don't have to say no, because I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's a lot that people call up and we have to turn them away because we don't have a slot available. And we have some people that will reserve a slot every day of the week for the following week, and then basically either use them or cancel them all. And they're all like to go to Mariano's or to go to Walmart. It's nice if we can do that. We've explored the possibility of making like a bus route, but it takes too long. To do a single circular route that would hit all the stores is about a 3 or 4 hour process. And then you'd have to repeat it again to pick them all up, to take them home, and that's your day.
Right.
And we run into a time crunch here now with the resignation or retirement of one of our drivers. So in the short term, if we don't replace the driver, like Dave said, what we'd like to do is go to medical appointments only on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'll have to eliminate the shopping trips, unless it's a necessity for prescription medications, things like that they need.
Anything else?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no, absolutely. This is if we, because I don't know how long it'll take, because we don't meet till August 13th again, and I hope to be able to come back to you with some ideas at that point. But the driver's leaving on the 15th, so 2 days isn't enough time to make a decision or implement a plan.
Right.
So, I mean, we have some really good ideas, and it sounds like the townships are more than willing to get involved in this. But we wanted to come and talk with you first, because if we met with the townships and started talking about, you know, possibilities, and somehow it got to another board and then made it to the Daily Herald, I didn't want you to think we're talking about things and making deals that the board doesn't know about.
Yeah, I agree. It seems very inefficient what we have right now. There's got to be a
It
better
is,
way.
we have 4 groups serving the same group of people, and none of us are doing it efficiently.
But I think it'd be a great marketing opportunity for some of these entities, though, if you can approach them.
We will do that. Thank you.
You know, and if Brookdale can't afford, and let us say that it's $43,000 a year for Victory Center and for Brookdale South and Brookdale North, I don't know how North is doing, Hawthorne Lakes.
They actually have their own bus, and they are driving their people
Yeah,
around for the most part.
they're using
Yeah.
that, and they're succeeding, or are they having, we may want to, you know, bring them into the fold too.
Might be able to.
You know, they have equipment, and if they wanted to give the equipment up or whatever to a centralized entity here that,
Nothing is off the table.
yeah. But if nothing else, get them to pony up maybe 10 grand. Again, like North Shore, get them to pony up if they have a lot. I seem to recall probably 7, 8 years ago, we limited the distance we would travel because we were going some extreme distance.
Yes, we were. Pretty much, while the boundaries are pretty loosely defined, we'll go to Condell. You know, there's a lot of doctors, medical officers in Condell. We'll go towards the northern section. We'll go into Buffalo Grove in the northern section.
Right, but we won't go to Lake Forest.
Yeah, no, we don't go to Lake Forest.
Right, and
Right.
that was one of the ones that, but.
Right. All right, well, I appreciate that. We will work our hardest to try to come back to you with some suggestions and a plan on the 13th.
Okay.
13th.
And we're looking in terms of some communication with the seniors ahead of time? Is that our goal?
Yes.
Okay.
They need
We'll still meet with them, because,
Yeah,
like I said,
well,
we've had several meetings with them. They've gone very well. They understand.
Yeah, we need to just keep them continuously informed that, hey, you know, we're losing our driver. We're not sure how we want to, or how we can best replace it. And, you know, these are all open agenda items, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything
Thank you.
else from anybody else on the board on this? Okay, so there's nothing else tonight? No, sir. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned.